Welcome to the Mississippi State University College of Business Family Business Education Initiative responding to COVID-19. Today's session, Marketing Research in COVID-19 with Dr. Nicole Ponder. Market research is almost an afterthought for some folks, and I guess not only do you need to think of it, but you've got to think about it in the right way and do it the right way.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's so important. I'm a huge advocate for marketing research. A lot of people get really intimidated by the whole process because, they might have a block of statistical analysis, or it just, sounds like something daunting, but it really does not have to be.
Well, let's sort of talk about what we're going to talk about.
Sure. So we'll talk a little bit about what marketing research is, talk a little bit about primary versus secondary data and when it might be appropriate to use each type. I'll go through several examples of how to create surveys, how to create survey questions, the type of online platforms you could use for development, and we'll talk a little bit about secondary data analysis too. That's a little tricky because there is a lot of information out there these days and it gets very overwhelming quickly. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about how to navigate all that.
Well, let's begin with the basics. What's marketing research?
Sure. So marketing research is all about collecting and analyzing information to help businesses solve a particular problem that they're having. Mm-hmm. So usually a company will start with a specific question. Maybe they see sales declining, right? And so why are sales declining? Let's see if we can find out. We're losing market share. Customers don't seem to be purchasing as much from us anymore. Let's see what we can figure out, like why is that happening, and then how we might be able to stop that and correct that. So marketing research, all about collecting, analyzing information, right, to help solve problems. So then there's two ways or two types of data that you could collect. So secondary data means the data's already been published. It's out there. It wasn't necessarily collected for your specific research question, your specific problem, but it might help you figure out, again, more about your customers. It might help you figure out who to target, what areas to move into, right?
But how do you caution against, particularly if, this is a mom and pop that does not have a PhD in business and marketing, but they're trying to get some data and they get online and by golly, there's Wikipedia and it says this, and this, and I read it on the internet and it must be true. I saw a text from Abraham Lincoln and he wouldn't lie, so it's got to be true. So how do you wade through that? So, the secondary data is easier to get, but there's just so much of it. How do you sift through it?
Right. So obviously you want to look for reputable sources. I would think trade publications would give specific information about the industry. For example, I've done some studies for the furniture industry, the consumer furniture industry. So there's a publication, Furniture Today. So Furniture Today might talk that have articles in there about trends that are taking place, like in the COVID area. Perhaps people are looking more for furniture for home offices, whereas home office furniture had fallen, way off in demand previously. So maybe there's a demand for that. So a publication like that might speak to those trends that companies are seeing in their particular industry, right? So there's trade publications. We're going to talk a lot about government sources, right? So the Census Bureau. There is so much information. It is absolutely overwhelming if you just go let's look at the census website and browse the data. I would highly recommend against that. Go there with a specific purpose and try to narrow that information or try to narrow your data search down to a particular geographic area, a particular industry, because if you don't, it is very, very overwhelming.
And if you come across something that may not be backed with a .gov or something, maybe a good idea to get it verified a couple different places before just taking it as the gospel that this is the latest trend.
Absolutely. So I would say sources like Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Business Week, those types of publications that already have an established reputation, you certainly be able to trust those. But I wouldn't take some type of, factual information from Facebook and say, that's the truth. Now, Facebook does have a place. Facebook, any social media site, if you're looking to maybe better understand potential customers, maybe there's an area of a business like you want to, there's a product that's adjacent to what you do, right? So maybe you're thinking in this time, maybe you see some shifts in consumer needs, right? So you could go onto like Facebook, Reddit, they've got like those subreddit groups. If you kind of target those groups and kind of figure and look for like attitudes and opinions of people that are posting, right? So these might be your potential customers, and they're saying, oh, I've got this particular need. Oh, I wish companies would make X for me or do this service for me. It's a great way to get ideas, but consider too that you're looking at attitudes and opinions of people as opposed to factual information, right? You're not going to social media to search out, factual information.
And it's easier to collect the secondary data than the primary, but the primary is so important. Why is that?
Oh my gosh. So if you are able to develop a survey and survey just your customers, right? So especially right now, you might not be meeting face to face with your customers. You might not be in communication with them as much as you used to. So I really believe in survey research. It is a great way to simply ask your customers, how are you doing? What are your needs? Have your needs changed? What can we do to help you through this time? Is there anything that we can offer that we don't currently offer to help you through what's happening today? So I really think survey research is so valuable. And the good news is that it is so much easier with the internet, right? So there are some companies, online software companies like Qualtrics.com, SurveyMonkey.com, even Google Forms has a little a survey template, and these websites make it so easy to develop a survey. They've got their templates already there, and you just kind of put the questions. You don't have to worry about formatting; it does it for you. And then the software will develop a link where your website is housed, and you can then email your customers and say, "Hey, would you mind taking this survey?" And then all the information. So they go and take the survey, and then all the data already entered. They don't have to worry about the company. Don't have to worry about then going and coding the data and entering it and all that. It's already there.
Well, so you put an exclamation point here. Don't ignore your results.
Yes.
Why the exclamation point? Does that mean suggest that some folks do ignore their results?
Yes. Yes. So here's the thing. If you are conducting a survey, and let's say it's a satisfaction survey, and you've got all these different aspects of your business, and you're asking customers like on a scale from 1 to 5, where 1 is highly dissatisfied and 5 is highly satisfied. Tell me about our level of customer service. You can have all your specific attributes that you're interested in. What if you get bad news? So I have seen this happen so many times, right? A company gets bad news, and the thing is, you're close to it, right? Especially if you're a small business, you've got your family involved maybe, and you've spent a lot of time and effort and energy, and you think all these great things about your business, and then you get some news from customers, and customers are saying, we don't like this, we're unhappy with this. It can kind of be a blow to the ego, and so I've seen it so many times where the company will just dismiss it, right? And they'll not take into consideration the customer's opinions, the customer's attitudes, and they end up hurting themselves.
Well, let's talk about some examples of some online surveys that could be useful for business.
Okay, sure. There are several different, research questions that a company could ask, and survey research could help answer these questions. So there's, again, satisfaction feedback, and that is a very basic type of survey where, again, you could set up statements where they range from highly satisfied to highly dissatisfied, or strongly agree to strongly disagree, right? And you ask some statements about the performance of the business, and that's very common type of survey to develop. There are plenty of examples online of satisfaction surveys. When you just Google satisfaction survey examples, you'll get plenty. So there's no reason to start from scratch or reinvent the wheel. You can certainly take existing surveys and kind of adapt them to your specific situation, your needs.
Well, you have an example here of surveying your customers' needs and how they've changed during COVID-19. I mean, that certainly is
Yes.
very, very relevant. And I would guess most or all of us have changed the way we interact with businesses.
I mean, it's amazing, just like that, overnight. So many businesses have to completely adapt to a new script, a new way of doing things, a new way of going about your business. So whether you're dealing with a consumer market or a business market, things have changed just across the board. So a survey is a great way to simply, and again, it doesn't even have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be long. You don't have to develop like a ton of scale questions. You can even ask open-ended questions. Just, what challenges are you facing? What can we do? Is there, what type of products or services could we offer that would help you?
Yeah, I think you provide a nice example here of a pretty simple,
it is.
but very informative. This is information
very
you
simple,
want.
right? So I just use the example of this is a consumer market. Consumers' need for food and groceries, and how that has maybe changed. And so this is just a basic scale question where it's the categories are less, the same, and more, and you're just asking, hey, how have your behaviors changed? So again, you're surveying your customers. How have your behaviors changed in this time? Like since the COVID outbreak, are you doing these behaviors more, less, or the same as before the outbreak? And so it just gives you a good sense, good indication of what your consumers are doing, and then how you might be able to step in and help them.
So you get this primary data, and obviously that is critical. And we talked about secondary data, but we also talked about some of the pitfalls of secondary data. But you've got a couple of sources that you like, that you these are reliable, good sources for secondary data.
Right. So the sources that are here are all census from the U.S. Census Bureau. And again, it can be very overwhelming when you go to that website and you start clicking around. Like I will get the wild ideas, like, oh, let me go browse. I haven't checked in with the census data lately. Let me go. And within 5 minutes, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just information overload, right? You have to back out. So if you go in though with specific needs, like I want to find out X, Y, and Z about my industry or my customers, then you can be a lot more focused, and you can weed out all the data there, because there's a lot. Weed out all the data that's not relevant to you and kind of focus on your specific.
I'm going to call out these sites one at a time, and you tell me why you would go there, or why a business may go. North American Industry Classification System. Okay,
so all of the data about businesses and economic indicators, all of that on the census website is categorized by codes, North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS codes, right? So you need to find out your code for your industry. And so there's like a broad code, and then it's narrowed down. So there's like retail trade, and then underneath retail trade, there's subcategories, right? So if you can focus your search, if you're looking for industry information, for example, and want information about your industry, if you focus your search on your specific NAICS code for your industry, then you are able to weed out all of the other information, right? So it just helps to focus. That, and then region of the country too. Like if you're only operating in the South and that's what you care about, you can not worry about the other four or the other three regions that the census collects data on, because you're only focused on the one region. So the more specific you can make your focus, the easier you'll have.
Yeah, the better the data, the more helpful.
Right.
How about the statistics of U.S. businesses?
Right. So this is information. This provides information about all the different industries, right? So economic indicators, employment status, how many employers do companies have, how much revenue do they have? All of those business indicators are available through this U.S. businesses statistics.
American Community Survey.
Oh, so I'm partial to this one. So this is more consumer based, right? So it looks at consumer, like population shifts, where people are living. Are they living in urban or rural or suburban areas? Income level, education level. So the American Community Survey is a great source to go to if you're considering, like, who do I target? What should my target market be? you could go there and really understand a little bit more about people who live in the different regions, different states. You could break the data down by
It gets down into little cells, doesn't it? I mean, very, very specific.
Very specific, yes.
Now, how about related specifically to COVID-19?
So I actually, to prepare for this topic, I actually went to the census website. I was just, doing a little playing around. And they actually have, so you think the census, you tend to think, oh, so it's once every 10 years. They collect data once every 10 years, right? We're in the middle of a big data collection now. But really, the Census Bureau collects information all the time. They have like 130 plus surveys that they send out to both businesses and consumer markets. And so these are two that deal specifically with how both businesses and consumers have been impacted by COVID. It is a fantastic resource. So there's the Small Business Pulse Survey and the Household Pulse Survey. They were actually doing these once a week. They publish new information, right? It changes weekly. They've been doing it since April. For the small business one, I believe they stopped in July, but they're going to pick back up again in August. And then you can see like weekly data, and then you can go and look week by week and see how sentiment has changed. So they'll survey again. It's a nationwide sample, a random sample, and you can see then. So they'll ask, like, the first question is, how much has COVID-19 impacted your business, right? And it's like a very large effect, moderate effect, or very large negative effect, moderate negative effect, moderate positive effect, very large positive effect. So you could look, again, by industry. So they break it down by NAICS code, right? And so you can see by industry, by specific industry, how businesses are feeling. Have they been impacted? To what extent have they been impacted? How has COVID changed their revenue? What about their employees? How many employees are now working at home? All kinds of questions that are very relevant to businesses today.
And the Household Pulse Survey, I would assume, would be the same thing with households.
Similar, right. So they ask, how is your spending changed? Are you spending more or less on food? Are you spending more or less on delivery services? What about health, both mental health and physical health? How has that changed over the weeks? Employment status, right? Mortgage and rent payments, like are you falling behind on these? Like, all of that information is there.
And you're starting to see some trends.
Yes, definitely. And so these trends, you can look at them as negative, right? Like, oh, these are some really bad things that are happening that are affecting my business, or you can see them as opportunities, right? And so these are just examples in a consumer market, because that's what I'm more comfortable with, is what I deal with more often. So you see these trends happening that, again, businesses have the opportunity to respond and hopefully maybe even create more customer loyalty, or gain customers that they didn't have before, right? So things like acceleration of the shift to online shopping. Well, of course, this was already happening, right? And this has been happening over over a decade, really. But it's kind of been a slow shift. And so what we've seen with COVID-19 is like really accelerated that shift even more. So the outcome for this, like for a business, well, obviously you need an online presence, right? If you don't have one, you got to get one. That's very important. And that actually ties in with the next trend, that interaction between customer and company is going online. So with your website, you can set up like virtual chat rooms, right? Or you can communicate via social media, right? That's how your customers want to communicate with you, then that's what you should be offering to be able to do that.
A lot of changes in food service and restaurants.
Yes, absolutely. We've seen not only, I guess it's out of boredom, nervousness, right? Like you gotta learn nervous energy, you don't know what to do with it. So there's a lot of like cooking now, like making bread, like all of these things that, people really maybe didn't have the time for, and everybody's at home. So you see a lot of that taking place. A lot of at-home meal preparation, meal kits have become a lot more popular.
Right. Well, and just curbside service and taking the meal home.
Right. I've seen in some places, obviously laws are different states and different cities, but some places have started to allow not only takeout restaurant, but like you can take out the alcohol as well.
Yeah, you
so
noticed
if
that. Yes.
if restaurants have specialty drinks or something, right? So I think both businesses and consumers were happy with that with that change.
Well, and the growing buy local sentiment, and another one of our speakers in this series was concerned that the buy local was not enough to hang your hat on, that when the COVID is over, that just supporting local to help them out may not be enough of a value proposition for customers. So we'll see.
Right. Well, especially with the COVID-19 happening, your incomes are being reduced, or people are out of a job. So it actually goes back to the decline in consumers' incomes drives value seeking. So if there is a buy local sentiment, then the local vendor needs to keep explaining or keep getting the message out about the quality. Like, our quality is better than going to some national chain. We provide a better value for these reasons, right? And really spell it out for the consumer and try to keep them as customers.
All right, so we have some additional resources we want to mention
Yes.
that you recommend.
Yes. So if you decide to conduct a survey, which I highly recommend, it is just so much easier to do today than it ever has been in the past. There are, again, you can search online for examples of surveys, and there is a handbook. I really like this one, the Survey Research Handbook. It gives some great tips on how to structure your questions, things like, avoiding double-barreled questions, like asking two questions in the same question, just split those out. Avoiding leading questions, a lot of just great examples of how to develop those. So for the Survey Research Handbook. And then the other ones, the Small Business Administration actually has some really good resources. They have a website that talks a little bit about a competitive analysis and how you might go about doing that. And they list also a wealth of secondary data sources that you could go to help you better understand, again, your industry as well as your competitors. And then the census data. So again, it can be very overwhelming. They actually do a pretty good job, though, considering the vast amount of information that's on the website. They actually have some like how-to videos that run sort of like this, that run like 10, 20 minutes at a time. Some are geared specifically for small businesses, how to understand that American Community Survey, how to understand that data, how to find customers using that information. So, they've got some very good, very straightforward how-to videos. It's called the Census Academy. So they have all these videos posted there. They actually even have some webinars. There was actually one today, this afternoon, for small businesses about how to use census data to help develop your business strategy.
You may be the only person I've ever seen get excited over a census video.
It's just so much, it's just a wealth of information. And the thing is, it's out there, it's free, it's easy to access. You just have to be a little bit patient. You have to enjoy numbers, I guess. And you can really find out a lot by kind of weeding through all that.
Well, and the bottom line is, it's a very competitive landscape, or it was even before COVID-19, and now it's more so. So if you want to do business, you've got to understand your customers.
Absolutely.
And the best way to understand them is ask them.
Exactly.
What a concept. Exactly. Just ask them.
Exactly. And if you don't want to get into big, surveys with scales, which again, you could do, it's not as difficult as it has been in the past, but you could just simply ask them open-ended questions.
Yeah.
And just, the thing is, you got to read them, right? So if you're surveying hundreds of your customers, you get back hundreds of data points, you got to read through them all, but you should want to, right? You should be excited and interested to hear about what your customers have to say. You got to see it as an opportunity.
Well, this has been very, very helpful, and I'm sure it's been helpful to the folks who have watched. I want to thank you. Here's your contact info, Dr.
Yes.
Nicole Ponder, Professor of Marketing and Director of the Graduate Programs, College of Business at Mississippi State University, and we thank you for your enthusiastic discussion on marketing and primary and secondary data.
Well, thank you.
And we certainly hope that you have found this useful as well.